But what can we do as individuals, with finite amount of time and resources, with obligations to our families, to our loved ones, to our jobs? What can we do to reverse this growing tide of darkness? Well, of course, only you can assess your situation, what might be best for you. The best we can hope to do today is to inspire action on your part. But let me offer, in closing, a few modest suggestions. First, and this really can't be overstated, I see this in liberty-minded people all the time, is understand that we're in a fight. It's a real fight. It's not just rhetorical. Okay, PC represents a war for our hearts, our minds, our souls. And the other side understands this. And so should you. Okay, the fight is taking place on multiple fronts. It's not just the state. There's a whole complex of government at all levels, academia, media, the business world, churches, synagogues, nonprofits, NGOs. All of these forces are aligned against you. And they're all pushing PC down our throats. And the Obama team in the White House employs a huge group of social psychologists. And that's all they do. They work on engineering the herd. That's their job. And they help people like Hillary Clinton overcome cognitive dissonance, right? When Hillary Clinton rails against Wall Street, wait, aren't you and your grifter husband the biggest beneficiaries of Wall Street largesse in the history of humanity? Well, for most people, that would cause cognitive dissonance, right? Enter social psychologists. So these are experts, folks. Okay? We're being outgunned and outmanned. Now understand that the PC enforcers, they're not asking you to accept this. They're not debating you. They don't care about your vote. Okay? They don't care whether they can win this at the ballot box. They don't care if they have to use extra legal means, stroke of a pen, executive order. Okay? They're in it to win. There are millions of progressives in the US who absolutely would criminalize speech that doesn't comport with their sense of social justice. Don't kid yourself. Okay, one poll recently suggests that 51% of Democrats and 1/3 of all Americans would absolutely favor criminalizing hate speech, so-called hate speech. Okay, the other side is fighting deliberately and tactically. So my single biggest piece of advice is realize you're in a fight. And arm yourself, equip yourself, and fight back. Culturally, this is a matter of life and death. The second thing I might say tactically in closing is that realize that we still have tremendous freedom to act. As bad as PC contamination might be at this point, we still have an enormous amount of freedom and elbow room available to us if we still choose to seize it. None of us here are Ludwig Mises fleeing the Nazis a few days ahead. We still have tremendous resources at our disposal in a digital age. We can communicate globally. We can create communities of outspoken anti-PC voices. We can still read and share the great anti-state books and articles of our time. We can still read real history. We can still read the great un-PC literary classics and share them with our kids. We can still homeschool those kids. And we can still, for the moment, hold events like this one today. So just as the state is really largely an illusion, it's based on maintaining its legitimacy in the eyes of the public, we should ask ourselves, have the PC walls really closed in as tight as we think, or is it us? Have we failed to grab all the room, all the space that's still available to us? And one way I might suggest grabbing that space is to use humor and ridicule against PC. PC is absurd. When you really get down to it, it's absurd, and most people sense this. Most people of goodwill do sense this still. And so as I mentioned with John Waters, its practitioners suffer from this comical lack of self-awareness and irony. So use every tool at your disposal to expose PC in your personal relationships, online, in your family, your friends. We should really steadfastly refuse to bow to it in our personal lives. Fight it wherever and whenever and however you can. Spread awareness of how we're being manipulated, because that's really the first step. Now, I'm not saying that this is necessarily easy. Bucking PC absolutely can hurt you. The possible loss of one's job, reputation, friends, even family. This is serious. But I don't think defeatism is called for, and I think it makes us unworthy of our ancestors if we succumb to it. Now, also realize that change can actually come very quickly. We tend to think that these things evolve over such a long period of time, but never forget the society can change very rapidly in the wake of certain precipitating events. And, we certainly hope no great calamity befalls the U.S., economic disaster, a currency collapse, energy crisis, a disruption in entitlement payments, civil unrest, anything like that. But we can't discount the possibility of these things happening. And if they do, I would suggest that PC is one of the modern adornments that would be among the first things to go. Okay? Only rich modern societies can afford this luxury of a mindset that doesn't comport with reality. So that mindset might disintegrate very rapidly if conditions, which is to say wealth, phrase in the West. I think men and women might start to realize that they need each other and complement each other if the welfare state breaks down. Hours and hours spent on mindless social media might give way to actually rebuilding those family and social connections that matter very much when the chips are down. And more productive pursuits like arts and crafts and languages and electronics and gardening and cooking and repair and programming. These things in hard times might replace diversions like Tinder and Instagram. And I think more traditional family structures, multi-generational living, etc., might suddenly seem less oppressive in the face of great economic uncertainty. And schools and universities might rediscover the value of teaching practical skills instead of whitewashed history and victimhood, grievance studies. One's sexual preferences might no longer loom as large in the scheme of things in a poorer world. And the rule of law might actually become, once again, something to be followed rather than just an abstraction that can be discarded at whim to further the social justice movement and to deny supposed privilege. So in other words, hard times just might make us rediscover the true meaning of justice, which is the granting of the earned. Hard times might help us rediscover ourselves, the spirited Americans described by A.E. Jeffcoat in his great book, stubborn, hard-boiled optimists with a deep and abiding pioneer spirit, rather than the soft, whiny narcissists we become in this PC world of feelings and constant umbrage. So play the long game. It might not be popular to say so, but if we hang in there and do everything we can, I'm convinced that the tide may just turn on our direction. But we don't have a lot of time to spare, ladies and gentlemen. If you think that the day is not coming soon when you might wake up and websites like Mises.org and newrockwell.com are simply not available any longer, or the day might come when those websites are not findable using search engines. If you think that day is far off, I suggest you think again. The head Facebook creep, Zuckerberg, was just at a UN conference and he was overheard on a mic talking to Angela Merkel, giving her every assurance that Facebook was working on it. And what he meant by that was they were helping to tamp down criticisms by German Facebook users of what the German government was doing in response to this latest refugee crisis. And Facebook actually came out with a statement, a public press release. Edward Bernays wasn't there to help. He said, "We are committed to working closely with the German government to find the best solution to this important issue." So we all know what that might be. It's chilling, isn't it? And I'm convinced it is coming soon to a server near you, unless we all get busy. So let's get busy. And thank you so much for your attention this morning.